those Friday nights in the 90s?
Seconds, clock's ticking. What do you do?
If I'm locked on, there's no such thing as evasive action.
Doesn't matter. Did I bruise your ego?
Man, those were the days. The 90s was this weird, wonderful era for science fiction. We had groundbreaking stuff like The Matrix and Jurassic Park that changed everything. What did we just watch? But you know what? There's something magical about even the worst 90s sci-fi. The practical effects, the overly dramatic scores, those hilariously dated CGI sequences that looked mind-blowing back then. Today we're diving into the 10 biggest sci-fi flops of the 90s. Some cost ridiculous amounts of money, some had huge stars attached, and all of them failed spectacularly. But here's the thing, I kinda love them anyway. There's this charm to 90s sci-fi disasters that modern flops just don't have. So, grab your Surge soda and Dunkaroos as we rewind to a time of dial-up internet, giant cell phones, and some of the most ambitious sci-fi disasters to ever grace the silver screen. Waterworld, 1995. First up has got to be Waterworld, the movie that nearly sank Kevin Costner's career faster than the polar ice caps in its own storyline.
If I let you out of here, you're taking us with you.
Sure.
I remember the hype around this thing. It was everywhere. The most expensive movie ever made at the time, clocking in at a mind-boggling $175 million, which was absolutely insane for the 90s. The whole premise seemed cool. Global warming melted the ice caps, the world is underwater, and Costner plays this weird fishman mutant with webbed feet and gills behind his ears.
That made a hole.
I was totally sold on the concept. My dad took me to see it opening weekend and we were both so pumped, but man, what a letdown. The actual movie was like 3 hours of Costner grunting, sailing around and drinking his own filtered pee. Not exactly the epic water adventure my 12-year-old self was hoping for. The villain, Dennis Hopper, was chewing scenery like it was his last meal, with an eye patch and this weird obsession with finding dry land. The funny thing is, watching it on cable years later, I kind of enjoyed it. It's got this weird charm to it now. The practical sets were incredible. They actually built that massive floating atoll in the ocean. Crazy ambitious, completely bonkers, and a spectacular financial disaster. The Postman, 1997. After Waterworld tanked, you'd think Costner would have stayed away from post-apocalyptic epics, but nope, he doubled down with The Postman. This movie is peak 90s optimism wrapped in a disaster film. The idea that delivering mail could somehow rebuild America after nuclear war is just chef's kiss ridiculous. I caught this one on a snow day when school was canceled. 3 hours of my life I'll never get back, watching Costner trot around in a postal uniform inspiring hope across a devastated America. The movie takes itself so seriously that it circles back around to being unintentionally hilarious. There's this scene where people are literally chanting, "The Postman," like he's some kind of messiah, and I remember my sister and I looking at each other like, is this for real?
Don't move.
The bad guy, General Bethlehem, might be the most on-the-nose villain name ever, and Will Patton plays him like he's in a completely different movie. What really gets me is that Costner directed this himself. This was his vision, a 3-hour epic about mail delivery. The spectacular failure of this movie actually makes me nostalgic for the days when Hollywood would blow massive budgets on genuinely weird ideas instead of just remaking everything. They truly don't make flops like this anymore. Battlefield Earth, 2000. Okay, technically this squeaked into 2000, but it's such a monument to 90s excess.
If I don't get Mickey to Cyclo first, they'll send down the gas truck.
Well, hurry up. Just hurry up, because I got company.
It belongs on this list. Battlefield Earth wasn't just a movie. It was John Travolta's passion project based on Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard's novel, and boy does it show. I remember the commercials with these weird dreadlocked aliens called cyclos and thinking it looked kinda cool in that cheesy 90s way. My best friend and I snuck into this after watching something else because nobody was checking tickets that day. Best worst decision ever. The entire film is shot at this bizarre Dutch angle, so everything's tilted like you're watching it sideways after too many Jolt Colas. Travolta plays Turl, this giant alien with platform boots and a laugh that sounds like someone choking on a fruit roll-up. The plot is ridiculous. Humans are primitive man animals and somehow learn to fly 1,000-year-old fighter jets in like a week to defeat advanced aliens. The dialogue is pure gold, though. Travolta constantly yelling while you were still learning how to spell your name. I was being trained. To conquer galaxies became an inside joke between my friends for years. It cost $73 million to make and earned back basically nothing. The special effects budget apparently went to hair extensions and nose prosthetics, leaving nothing for the actual effects. It's gloriously, perfectly terrible. Johnny Mnemonic, 1995. Before Keanu was Neo, he was Johnny, a data courier with 80 gigabytes in his brain.
I need a Sinologic 16, Sogo 7 data gloves, a GPL stealth module.
Yes, 80 gigabytes. I love that in the 90s. That seemed like an impossibly huge amount of data. Today I've got more than that just in cat photos on my phone. I rented this on VHS after seeing the cool cyberpunk cover at Blockbuster. The movie feels like someone explained The Matrix to an alien who then tried to recreate it using only 90s music videos as reference. There's a cyborg dolphin, Ice-T leading revolutionaries called the Low-Techs, and Dolph Lundgren as some kind of techno-preacher assassin who randomly quotes the Bible. The internet in this movie is this weird 3D virtual reality space where Keanu wears special gloves to move data around like he's conducting an orchestra. Remember when we thought the internet would look like that instead of just, scrolling feeds of content? The most memorable scene has Keanu having an absolute meltdown, screaming, "I want room service. I want the club sandwich. I want a computer," which I still quote whenever I'm having a bad day. It tried so hard to be cutting edge, but ended up being as dated as a AOL "You've Got Mail" notification. Judge Dredd, 1995. 1995 was a rough year for sci-fi, and Judge Dredd is perfect evidence.
The best thing you can do is kill me. Why? Because it's your only chance, brother.
Stallone took one of the darkest, most satirical British comics and turned it into whatever this was. I convinced my dad to drive me and my friends to see this because the poster looked awesome. Stallone looking grim with that eagle shoulder armor and the massive lawgiver gun. Little did I know I was in for 90 minutes of Stallone yelling, "I am the law," while barely keeping his helmet on. The comic character famously never removes his helmet. It's his whole thing. But Stallone's contract apparently required his full face to be visible, so there goes that iconic element. The movie feels like it was made by executives who read a one-paragraph summary of the comic. It's set in Mega City 1, this massive dystopian city where judges act as police, jury, and executioner. Cool concept. But then they add in Rob Schneider as comic relief, which is like putting sprinkles on a steak. The special effects bounce between, "Hey, that's pretty cool," the city landscapes, to, "Was this made on someone's home computer?" the ABC robot. The production design is this weird mix of epic and cheap, like they blew the budget on the first half and had to cut corners for the rest. It's a movie that spawned 1,000 memes before memes were even a thing. Barb Wire, 1996. Remember when Pamela Anderson tried to become an action hero? Barb Wire is what happens when someone watched Casablanca and thought, this would be better with more leather and explosions. I caught this one on a sleepover at my friend Mike's house because his older brother had a tape of it hidden in his room. Set in 2017 during the Second American Civil War, which didn't age well. Anderson plays a nightclub owner bounty hunter who really doesn't like being called Babe. The movie opens with her doing a water-soaked dance routine on a stage while shooting at audience members. Subtle, it was not. The ridiculous part? It's literally Casablanca with the gender roles swapped. There's a resistance fighter and his wife trying to escape the country, a MacGuffin hidden in plain sight, and Pamela playing the Rick character who doesn't get involved, but then does. Even the bartender is a direct ripoff of Sam. The dialogue is pure cringe gold. My favorite line is when she says, "Don't call me babe," then proceeds to murder like 5 people. The entire film is bathed in this blue-tinted 90s music video aesthetic that screams, directed by someone who used to make Aerosmith videos. Which, incidentally, was true. I still remember feeling scandalously grown up watching it, then being completely confused by the plot. It wasn't until years later I realized they'd ripped off one of the greatest films ever made and somehow turned it into whatever this was. Lost in Space, 1998. This movie has the distinct honor of knocking Titanic off the #1 box office spot when it opened.
Don't see anything.
This is gate control.
Then immediately face-planting. I begged my parents to take me because I was obsessed with anything space-related. Plus, the robot looked cool in the commercials with its "Danger, Will Robinson" catchphrase. The film stars William Hurt looking thoroughly confused about why he's there, alongside Matt LeBlanc trying desperately to prove he could do more than just be Joey from Friends. Spoiler alert, this movie didn't help that case. What baffles me is how they took a campy but beloved TV show and made everything darker and edgier, yet somehow more ridiculous. There's a sequence where they fight off space spiders, and the CGI looks like something from a PlayStation 1 game. And don't get me started on the time travel paradox in the third act that made absolutely zero sense. The worst offender was the character Blarp, a CGI space monkey that was clearly trying to be the next Jar Jar Binks, as if we needed one. My younger cousin loved Blarp so much he got the action figure, which, I kid you not, sat untouched in its packaging until their garage sale years later. I remember walking out of the theater and my dad saying, "Well, that was something," which was dad code for, "That was terrible, but I paid for it, so I can't admit it." Sphere, 1998. On paper, Sphere should have been amazing. Based on a Michael Crichton novel, directed by Barry Levinson, starring Dustin Hoffman, Sharon Stone, and Samuel L. Jackson. How do you mess that up? Somehow, they found a way. I read the book first because my science teacher had a copy in our classroom library. It was this cool story about a team investigating an alien spaceship at the bottom of the ocean, only to discover it's actually from Earth's future. Inside is a mysterious golden sphere that makes your thoughts become reality. Awesome premise. The movie, though? I watched it at my friend's house on a rented VHS, and we kept having to rewind because we thought we'd missed something that would make it make sense. The pacing is glacial, watching people in a habitat talking for what feels like forever. Then when stuff finally happens, it's just jellyfish. Lots of killer jellyfish. The sphere itself looks cool, this perfect golden orb with strange reflections. But the psychological horror from the book, where people's fears manifest in terrifying ways, somehow translates to squid attacks and bad CGI explosions on screen. The ending is the real kicker. After all the death and discovery, they just choose to forget everything? I remember my friend's dad walking in during the last scene, watching for about 30 seconds and saying, "That's it? That's what you guys have been watching for 2 hours?" We had no defense. Wing Commander, 1999. Gaming was my life in the 90s, so when they announced Wing Commander was becoming a movie, I lost my mind. The games were groundbreaking.
They don't believe they can withstand a Kilrathi battle group without the support of the fleet. Earth will never surrender.
Full motion video with Mark Hamill and Malcolm McDowell. How could they mess this up? Turns out, pretty easily. They cast Freddie Prinze Jr. and Matthew Lillard, then removed the Kilrathi cat aliens, the main villains, almost entirely from the movie. When they did show up, they looked like reject Thundercats costumes. I convinced my entire D&D group to go opening night. The silence as we left the theater was deafening. The space battles looked like someone filming bathtub toys, and the plot made zero sense if you hadn't played the games. Even my friend who worked at Electronics Boutique and got free merch wouldn't take the promotional poster. Batman and Robin, 1997. Nothing killed a franchise faster than bat nipples.